Listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not from some farcical aquatic ceremony. Or Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have the co-founder and CEO of Minds, a decentralized social networking app with over 6 million users focused on censorship resistance, global dialogue, privacy, and creator monetization with both traditional payments and cryptocurrency. He is also the co-author of The Censorship Effect. We're going to get deep into our minds today as I bring you Bill Ottman. Bill, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
We got you here in an interesting time in the world that we're in. This seems to be a theme of some of the recent guests we've had along security, censorship, privacy information, all the stuff that we deal with online or digitally or whichever way we're dealing with stuff. But I want to do a little rewind here. Bill, I love to ask the guests on the program, kind of like, I don't want to go all the way to the womb. What I want to do is understand how this thing that you're working on right now became your gig.
Yeah. So back kind of when I was graduating college, I went to UVM in Vermont and
Go Catamounts.
Yep. And me and some friends would organize these events called Gathering of the Minds. And they were sort of hybrid forums / festivals. And, kind of we would talk about topics, try to like take sort of community action, but then there would be this more like entertainment and kind of music festival type component. And they were great. And we just ultimately felt like it wasn't scaling and it wasn't kind of going to where we needed to go. So we kind of stopped doing it for a while. I moved down here to Connecticut and started organizing bigger music festivals. I worked with Gathering of the Vibes Music Festival, which is not around anymore, but it was huge. It would, be like 30,000 people for the weekend listening to all kinds of, big bands like the Marleys and James Brown and all that kind of stuff. But then I just sort of realized that I wanted to take, kind of revisit Minds. We would call it Minds for short back in the day. And then I don't know. I woke up to the whole idea that the internet is just this incredible tool for social organizing. And I was a little bit like, honestly, anti-tech in college. I was a hippie in the woods and, reading, English literature and writing stuff. So I was just disillusioned by what I saw with everybody on social media. Facebook was really just emerging and it just seemed really weird. Everybody was just addicted to it. And I didn't like that. But then I discovered the whole kind of separation between like big tech, surveillance, web, and open source. And that's when I really started understanding like the true spirit of the internet and where it emerged and kind of all of the cypherpunks and, privacy gurus and just like all these freedom fighters and how this technology is actually neutral. And there's like this war going on for people's attention and what platforms are gonna some platforms are gonna respect people's freedoms and other platforms are not. And so, yeah, I mean, just decided to start an open source social network because we knew that I felt that was inevitably going to happen. Like, because you have all these, none of the big tech sites are open source. So I just feel like inevitably people want transparency, privacy. They want to, get rewarded. They want to earn money. They want, um, yeah, they just want to be respected. So seems like it's going to happen at some point. And most of honestly what we thought 10 years ago when we first started has really started to happen. I mean, people definitely are pissed at big tech pretty much across the political spectrum, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. For the listeners who aren't familiar with this, and obviously Bill probably has more knowledge about this than most. One of the biggest problems that the social platform has was when there used to be this thing when something got posted, we would visualize it chronologically as it was posted. Now the stuff that you see in your feed is very much based on the stuff that you like or people follow you or very similar to your interest, which is a cool thing, I guess, initially, but they didn't think about what the negative side of this was, is that all you see is specific types of content based on what you deal with, and you don't get a chance to have this more holistic view of opinion. It's no different than the news channels you watch these days and what you get used to. So first of all, with that aspect of it, the big guys here, look, they're in this to make money, but they state that they're trying to bring people together and they've created a platform to do it. Let's talk about one of the things, like there's very good things that social media can do. And there's been very negative results because that's what seems to get the noise and where the problems are. Let's just talk high level without diving into minds for a second. How can we do better in this space? How can we do better as users in the way that we purvey this message? And then we'll dive a little bit into the effect that you have actually helped to drill down and highlight.
Yeah. So, yeah, to what you said about the algorithms, like, yeah, back in the day, I mean, early Facebook and whatnot, you subscribe to people, you have your feed, you get their posts. That's like kind of the basic social media setup. That's what we thought that it was supposed to be, and that's what we thought we were going to get. Starting in like 2012, 2013, Facebook and others started changing their algorithms so that, yeah, it wasn't just your friends. It was kind of what they think you should see. Yep. Based on stuff that we don't know because they don't disclose anything about the algorithm. And your organic reach started going down. So like if you're a small business or, media company, like you notice like, well, I'm not getting as many likes. I'm not getting as much engagement. This is kind of weird and scary because a lot of businesses were relying on that feed to distribute their content. And so, I think that like in terms of how we can do better, it's just like we have to hold these companies accountable because people's businesses are on the line. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's acceptable, this shift towards like the dominant algorithmic feed and kind of putting this, the whole subscriber relationship to the side. That's really what's happening. And the reality is that their AI and machine learning does give good recommendations. Like I'm not bashing the recommendations necessarily, but if you work for years building up a following and then suddenly that following becomes worthless, like that's a really scary thing for people. Yeah. And people do go out of business.
No, and it's been, and there's been many people who've had that business be their business. Like literally that's their whole livelihood and how they set this stuff up. Building Minds, your platform. How did you go about building this, right? So obviously because of what we've learned in the past and code and where things can go, how did you build it so that it could, one, be different from what the other big tech folks have been doing, and two, be able to maintain it? Just because a lot of how social media and social networks have grown or developed has been in an organic way of how these lessons have followed, and certain habits can go that way. How have you been able to at least structure it that way?
A bunch of really smart developers.
Listeners need to know, you didn't get a chance to see this. There was a complete sigh of just, I can't believe the brain power was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you know, the way that open source works is, there's all these frameworks that exist out there to kind of help you along the way, and amazing projects have done a lot of the legwork. So, we didn't build it from scratch. We kind of puzzled together a handful of frameworks, and we have this dedication. So I don't know if people know much about open source, but it means that we basically share our software so people can read it, they can take it, they can make their own app with our code. Like if you're trying to build a social network, hit me up, or go to developers.minds.com and you can see our code and you can use it. And so there's this whole phrase in open source world called standing on the shoulders of giants, which is really what it is. We are all kind of building on innovations of previous generations and previous people. And I think that this is one of the offensive things about big tech is that they use open source to build their apps, but they don't share their code.
Yeah.
Like behind this, they have some like infrastructural tools that they open source. They absolutely understand the power of open source, but like, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, like none of them are open source. And it really speaks to their intentions and the power dynamic there. They're not trying to be like on the same tier as their user. Like they want to have that power over people. So yeah, I mean, we did equity crowdfunding round in 2017. We raised $1 million through WeFunder, which was amazing. We got like thousands of members of our community to invest, and now they own stock. And then we did a couple of other funding rounds, and yeah, we've been building and growing the team, and it's a decade in the books. So but it's still a long way to go.
I want to talk about one of the, I'm not going to say hypocritical, but I'm going to just say unique challenges that Minds has is one of the ways to attract new users to your platform is to probably utilize the other ones to talk about it. Has that been true of, utilizing whether Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera? Talk about maybe the way you go about that and utilizing that marketing challenge, which by the way, as we've talked about, can be challenging if it isn't the main platform where you're at.
Yeah.
So tell me how that initiative and getting the word out, I'm using that term digitally, the digital word out, to let people know about Minds.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good question. It's actually something I've really struggled with over the years. We, are initially like back before Facebook's algorithm was a complete joke. We have Facebook pages. We don't really use them that aggressively now, but like I think between all the pages, we got 1 million followers or something over there. So we used to drive an incredible amount of traffic to minds.com from Facebook. And then, we really amped up our efforts building our own social network when we saw the reach going down. But like over the years that we've gone through phases, like there have been times when I've just thought, I don't even want to give any of the other platforms any energy. And there have been other times where I say, you have to go into the matrix to destroy it. So
amazing.
I'm more so in that mode at this point, just especially observing like, look, the reality is that the world is addicted to these apps, YouTube, Twitter, everything. And I do think I think that it's probably naive to think that we can do it completely by like not having any communications from our end going into there. So, like our Twitter has grown like, 1,000% this year, just putting effort into it. Like we had one post go viral the other day that was, it got 10 million views on Twitter.
I want to say I saw it.
You did see it. Did you see it? Because like without
Well,
knowing that it was going to come? Like, you didn't come to
well,
us; it came to you.
well, let's give some timeline on this, and that is that I have a team that helps to push some of the stuff, and a lot of the team members will join a lot of the links ahead of guests coming on the program.
Yeah.
And when stuff like that happens, they'll be like, you got to see this, and they'll send me stuff prep before we have certain calls, specifically for stuff like this, when we have actual content.
Yeah.
And they go, wow, the guy on your show is blowing up, was one of the comments that came in. So I saw that. I'm like, all right, that's pretty freaking cool. But so how I saw it would have been because it was, remember how that algorithm works. A lot of times when you recently subscribe to follow someone, they'll prioritize that in the feeds. It must have been around that aspect. I think a couple of days ago, right?
Yeah. So for people who don't know, like, so I know Joe, been on there a couple times, and
it's Joe Rogan we're talking about. He's some podcaster guy.
Yes, yeah, you might know him.
And he had Zuckerberg on the
yeah, he had Zuckerberg on. So we like, because he's very interested in these topics, and when there are really relevant clips, like sometimes we'll grab like a super short clip and make a comment on it. And Zuckerberg made this comment during the election, where basically Twitter had completely banned the New York Post story about Hunter Biden, and Facebook Zuckerberg said in this clip that they were algorithmically suppressing it in the feed because it was sort of unclear what exactly was told to them from the FBI, but the FBI basically said, listen, there's going to be disinfo you got to watch out for. Not completely clear if they were specifically talking about that story. But anyway, he said that he basically said that they took action on it based on a general request by the FBI to be on the lookout for this kind of stuff. And obviously everybody knows all the drama with the FBI recently. And so that's kind of what caused it to go into, the next dimension, is because kind of the political weight around what's going on with the FBI right now.
Yeah.
But we really aren't political as the company. We really try to stay away from that. I know that there are some alternative social networks that kind of lean into that political stuff. We, sometimes it's unavoidable, but like our focus is more about like discussing the polarization. Like, why are we so divided? And we actually think that big tech is creating more social division and polarization based on their content policies, which are actually political, and these, they've been getting called out over the last few years for kind of having these biased policies. And
this is going to be a good bleed into your book here, because here's the craziest part, right? And let's just tap into this exact gorilla that's trying to knock into our podcast here. Political actions have been where the biggest problems and the biggest divides have been caused in social networking, social media. Let's go to it on both sides. We had a president, number 45, who had a unique way, Mr. Trump, of utilizing Twitter every single day and communicating out, which was one political way of viewing things, which led to another one, which they kicked him out of it. Talk about censorship, right? Whether, so like just from getting involved politically within that. And then to your point, obviously, about Facebook and a lot of the around the election and the suppression components. And we all know there have been corrupt factors, Russian involvement and hacking into social media and all of this stuff, highlighting where this challenge is now. And I'm bringing this up because this is where it's so cool, because here's someone that is trying to not censor the content that's out there. Whatever side is on here, there's been people trying to manipulate algorithms, content, users within this, which, anyway you look at that, whatever side you're on, is some form of censorship. So one, I wanted to get your take on all of that. And two, how does someone who's created a platform and written a book about it, we'll talk about this effect, try to balance all of these things out? Because some of these actions were done to protect people in their minds, or they wanted to make a stand.
Yeah.
It's one of the most challenging things we've ever seen, because it's fascinating, specifically because there have been people who've been dishonest in a lot of the communication and utilizing that as a bad thing, lies, untruths or half truths and using social media to market it. And that's been going on for a very long time in traditional media.
Oh, right.
So one, get your take on this, and then we'll dive into the message that you've delivered to the world.
Yeah, I think that, it's pretty obvious that there's malicious misinformation and propaganda, hate speech. There's plenty of nasty stuff on social media, which can have consequences. And so we're not sitting here trying to excuse that. I mean, we have our own approach to dealing with it. Generally speaking, like it just like based on the research out there on kind of the impact of deplatforming and censorship, it just doesn't even work. So like even if your goal is to minimize hate speech, minimize misinformation, going around and just going on these ban sprees, like for instance during COVID, tons of users were getting banned for just posting like studies, controversial studies. I'm not vouching for the validity of them or not, but it like lots of people got banned for that. And now you see YouTube actually reversing those policies because new data has come out that is, counter to the prior data, which is just how things go. Like information changes over time. So you get people losing their livelihoods because of like a trigger happy content policy. And I just think over the history of our country, I mean, look, like the First Amendment, regardless of if you think that there are certain dangers with it, is the most battle tested speech policy in existence, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that most people can appreciate that, freedom of speech is the foundation of a healthy society. And so why would we think that like a handful of Silicon Valley lawyers can draft a more coherent speech policy than, centuries of case law? I guess that's kind of where we're coming from on it. We don't think that we're smarter than centuries of, American speech history. And, there's lots of academics who study this topic now, and are showing that the censorship causes increased radicalization, polarization. And there's like this other interesting, sorry to dive in. There's just one.
No, this is what we do here.
So there's this really fascinating study, one specific that we talk about, that came out in the beginning of the year, and it used empathy as a counter speech method on social networks to battle racism. So so essentially what they did was it was on Twitter, and they had these interventionists that were on their team go in and engage people. And they used three different strategies. One was empathy, one was comedy, and one was like trying to convince them that, they're wrong and that they need to change. And overwhelmingly, they found that the empathy approach garnered the best results. Oh, wow. Being nice to people causes them to respond to you more favorably. Weird. And so I mean, this is exactly what the data all the other data that we found shows. And we work with Daryl Davis, who has famously helped hundreds of members of the KKK leave the group, and he does that by befriending them. He is a black man, and he's a hero. And so it's like, why would we think that somebody who's deep into conspiracy theories on social media is like, what do you think's going to happen if you ban them? They're going to be reinforced that Facebook is this like huge, conspiracy. And then they're going to go into some other darker little forum, and they're going to become more reinforced in what they're thinking. And this, multiply this by 1 million people. And what do you think you have? Oh, you have today's modern political landscape, which is total chaos. So, I think that we just need to rethink our approach, and we need to not, be impatient. I know that like we see things that we disagree with and that we think are offensive and that we think are dangerous, but the reality is that speech is not violence. And if anything, speech is our tool to resist violence. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of our thesis. And we have some programs for de-radicalization. And we're hoping that big tech sites will start to, we actually, some of them are looking at this research, like at Reddit, they're aware and looking into our paper. And we're not trying to do like a "I told you so" type thing. It's like, look, this is a scholarly conversation. We're not trying, we understand, like, there's brilliant people who work at these big tech companies. I'm not trying to like demonize them. They've done what they've done for a reason. So yeah.
So for the record, some individual might have argued that every conversation begins with a great connection. I don't know who wrote such a book, whatever it is. So I agree with you that the connection needs to start by having the conversations. And what has happened with this medium is, this goes into the old rules. Email is one-way communication. Social media, in many cases, while you feel like you're having a chat, is really not a conversation. It's isolated segments of bringing it together, but having conversations about it is important. And that's why we have podcasts, and that's why the content is valuable. And we do recognize change needs to take place through great conversations and through the connections of people to figure out, like you said, a scholarly chat about bringing this stuff together, which you should be applauded for. I want to applaud you
do
for.
You talk about speakeasies, the actual speakeasies in your book? I haven't.
It's kind of the unhidden reference within
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah. We do that. Basically, it's we're letting you in the door in this kind of special club from 100 years ago, and we enable you to put little conversational flights together, so we could talk more about that.
Yeah.
But this is about you, Bill.
Well, I think it's relevant because
Yeah.
speakeasies in the era of like prohibition, like it's sort of it's they're very powerful zones where a lot of key conversations and innovations happen. And like it shows the social organizing kind of effects. Like speakeasies are sort of a physical version of us, in a sense. Like I think that we have emerged sort of in a similar way to how speakeasies emerged. Like we exist because we see there's sort of these restrictions on big tech. So the alternatives pop up based on the restrictions that exist on the big one.
Well, let's just bring this analogy to a full circle here, and that is, remember, because they banned there was prohibition 100 years ago, speakeasies popped up because they wanted to have a place where people can obviously partake, but a lot of it was to gather gather in a way, like together, and have those conversations or those entertainment moments. And by the way, this is what this is very important about, and which you've made a great point. Like, whether or not these big tech companies have meant to do it or not, censorship has gotten involved. I'll ask this question at the end when we deal with it as it relates to minds. But I want to talk about when you and your colleagues sat down to put together the censorship effect. I ask this question to every author that comes on the program. There's always a gift for the reader on what they can deliver and the message and the learning that they can get. But somehow there's almost like a happy accident for the author. For you, what was the happy accident for the censorship effect, the gift that you received in putting together this message?
I think that it really just helped me understand, how getting triggered by, kind of nasty stuff that you see on the internet is just a complete waste of time. Like basically, it's so easy. You wake up, you check your phone. Hopefully not. Hopefully you give yourself a few minutes before doing.
By the way, that someone's measuring that now, and they're trying to figure out. Supposedly, I heard this is going on in Apple, from when the phone has been at rest at a certain part of the morning to how quickly it's grabbed for those that actually set alarms, they can track this. Like, hey, set an alarm, they pick up the phone to turn it off. But how quickly are people picking the phone up in the night, in the middle? You're right. It's very fast.
Yeah. So,
Sorry.
I I think that being able to consume content or ideas that are counter to what you think, and not having that trigger you and cause stress, and almost inverting it in a sense where you see something that seems completely insane to you that someone posts, but like actually having the opposite reaction, like what's going on in this person's head, like truly like having more of a human approach to it. Under like I, there's all these mental health issues, approaching this whole thing through the lens of mental health has been extremely valuable. My own mental health, other people on the internet, like you just don't have to be angry all day, scrolling through content. And I think that is how a huge percentage of the population is currently behaving. Like they're pretty much at the control of the content that they're seeing. And they see some political post from the other side of the aisle, and then they go and like send it to their friends. Look at this, can you believe it? Like it's just not productive. So I have found through this whole process, it's just helped me to be able to deal with countering opinions like drastically better. Yeah.
And that actually was a question of mine. So in writing this, and obviously having the opinion of what you're creating and this very cool platform, you are wearing many hats. Let me describe them. You're running a social networking app company. You have written a book. You're opining about the marketing and messaging and developing of the company. And you're also dealing with an issue that is, and oh, by the way, you're hanging out in the woods, I'm assuming, every now and then. With all these different hats that you're wearing, is there one job that you like doing better than the other, or wearing more often?
Probably this type of stuff, to be honest, doing podcasts. I like, if I had it my way, I would probably just be doing podcasts all day, every day, because I just like talking to people. I do enjoy the product part of it. It can be a little bit exhausting sometimes, but I'm definitely, it's like you're building a house, like you get attached to it, and you want to get it to that finish line. So I definitely do enjoy the product design and development process, and puzzling together these tools to build a decentralized social network. Like, because it's one thing to build like a traditional application, but the hard part about what we're doing is that actually building a decentralized version of these types of apps it's extremely hard. The tech is just very new, and I won't get too much into it, but like what we're trying to do is make it so that your identity, your followers, your content, that these assets are portable and you own them.
Yeah.
So that it has nothing to do even if you get banned or not, even if you just want to leave. Like you can't take your followers out of Facebook. You can't take them out of iTunes or YouTube. They're stuck there. So they keep you there. But there is a world where we're moving to where that's not going to be the case. And that's where things like cryptography, like everybody having their own key pair, basically the identity element is going to be associated with having like a public address, a public key, where people can either send you messages or money, crypto. And then when you make posts, and this is happening in the background, you're signing these events, these posts with your crypto key, so that they're like forever linked.
Yeah.
And then additionally, when the same thing is happening when you're following people. So you have this key where you control the public and private key. You can like store that wherever you want. You use that to sign into all of these apps. That's the general world where like we think that we're going. And there's multiple different projects that are taking this approach. Doesn't mean that you need to know a lot about cryptography. You don't need to know anything, but you will have this sort of like asset that you do need to be careful not to lose, and you're going to want to back up and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's hugely powerful to think that, oh, wow, the followers that I'm gaining, I own.
Yeah. I just want to make this comment to that last point you made. In a pre-digital world, we did live in a world where you needed a key and you had to make sure you didn't lose it, or you came up with a copy for it.
Yeah.
We had house keys, we had car keys, we had actual things that were unique to what we had, and these were the things we had. And now it's like, oh my God, we gotta deal with it this way. Yeah, but this is something we've been dealing with for years, and that reality is security. People will get over that part. I'm telling you, that's just a hurdle that just seems weird because it's complicated today.
And there will, yes, that's such a good point. You know, just the general concept of a key is actually it's somewhat intuitive. Like we're just so used to, you know, Google or Facebook, like, you know, resetting our password and not having not having to deal with any of that. But even if you do lose your key in this new world that we're talking about, you'll be able to get it back. There'll be mechanisms like, you know, there's these kind of social recovery systems where you could like get your partner or your mom to, you know, you could give them a signature on it so that if you do lose it, you know, you need like 2 out of 3 of you need to sign something and then you can get it back. Like there's things that make that possible. So, and it's just, again, it's another sign, the fact that, you know, big tech has essentially infinite resources and they're not leading the charge on this. It's like their silence on it is such evidence of kind of their intentions because this is what the smartest people, the smartest developers are working on. You do even see, I mean, not that like I have a lot of questions and issues with Jack Dorsey, but he is working on stuff like this with decentralized identity. He has this whole like company called what is it called? The project is called Web 5, which is sort of a play on Web 3 because he like has a lot of issues with some crypto stuff, but he's working on decentralization. You're seeing Instagram and Twitter introduce NFTs.
Yeah.
You know, you're starting to see crypto become integrated, but at the same time, they're just like, they're following the pack. They're not leading the pack because they know that if they lead the pack, they're giving away the power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do the admin part of the show, and then we're going to have a little fun street session here with a bonus question I got. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, Bill Ottman, and where they can find you or learn about Minds. We'll put it on the show notes, but it gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
Yeah. Find me on Minds at Ottman, Ottman, minds.com/Ottman, or you can get the mobile apps at minds.com/mobile or on the app stores and whatnot. So yeah, that's it.
No, that was easy. See, that was the easiest social. And we're only going to have to post the Minds link to everybody in the show notes today. We're going to do that in honor of Bill here. So, okay. Maybe we'll show the Twitter one.
You can show the Twitter one. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to show that Twitter feed within that. You ready to go down Fun Street with me here, Bill?
Sure.
You've been having fun the whole time. I can tell. He's been smiling through his very cool beard. Okay. An all-time favorite movie of yours, or one that when you see, you love to rewatch?
I just rewatched The Big Short about 2 nights ago, and it's definitely in my, you know, it's one of my favorite movies. The cast is just insane, and the story is so amazing, and it's like something that can, you know, we're in a bear market right now, economically, globally, and something for anyone who doesn't know, it's about people in the 2008 real estate crash, financial crash, who, you know, realized that the real estate market was going to implode, and they shorted and bet against it and made billions of dollars. And so you've got Steve Carell, you've got Ryan Gosling. Yeah. It's just like have you seen it?
Yeah, I've not only seen it, I read the book, and having someone who worked on Wall Street lived it.
Yeah.
So there are components in there that were very accurate. Some that were
Oh,
Hollywoodized.
which one?
Yeah. Well, so the accurate components, which was a real true story, was that incident in Miami where Steve Carell went down and learned of the gentleman who they positioned at Merrill. It actually wasn't a Merrill person; it was somebody from a company called First Franklin, which Merrill acquired. That whole thing where he goes short everything that guy owns, which was like that. He
Oh, the
came
guy
out
at
of a
the
meeting.
sushi bar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. With the obnoxious, whatever, like just, how much money, like that attitude was exaggerated, but what he learned in that conversation was true. And some of the timing of how they were doing stuff, showing when Lehman was blowing up and everything that was going on. But a lot of the people walking out with boxes, that was all, this stuff happened. And the hardest thing that happened, just sidebar here, the reason it went so haywire was that none of these things had ever blown up before. And the other part is there was no way to hedge against it. And that was the biggest, scariest part, is when you start to realize that they came up. Remember, they invested in
created
trying
that
to short it.
instrument. Yeah.
They had to create an instrument to do it, and poorly named instrument, the CDS. We'll talk about that in another podcast.
Yeah.
But it was a very important component to what was there. It was the only thing that, okay, well, now I'm doing this, let's hedge it. But there was never enough size to be able to take care of it. So a lot of lessons learned. It always, Wall Street's biggest problem, every single, time, greed hits at some point.
I appreciate Michael Burry's contrarianism too. He's just like,
Yeah.
he's a wildcat. And, I just,
Michael Lewis does a gift. We're going to give him a shout out here.
yeah.
In every book he writes about this unique contrarian unicorn type of thing.
Mhm.
Someone who finds a different way to do something and is the best at whatever that is, whether it was the left tackle uniqueness position of, that was created in football that they talked about in Blindside, whether it was the new thing talking about the founder of I forgot whatever company it was, Silicon Graphics, who Jim Clark, who invested in all these different companies, was innovative with it. Every one of these books that he's on, Liar's Poker, same thing, creating all these markets. He finds that unique thing of somebody who's looking at something a little differently and highlights it. And he does it really quickly and timely. To capture The Big Short was amazing. And I love the movie too. The movie did a great job with that cast, but also really hit home just what was going on in this world. People owning 5 homes without any money and not having to put anything down, just all that crazy stuff. Let's go continue.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to do the quick speed round here, Bill. Here's how it works. I'm going to ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind. These are things that lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good, basically make you thrive. Ready? A song or type of music that you love to listen to that pumps you up.
I saw the Super Mario theme song done by this insane classical guitarist in the last couple days, and it just made me realize how much how much I love the Super Mario. Those composers were amazing, and seeing like real musicians play it is so cool.
Oh, we got it. My team's on that. We're gonna figure out how to get that in here. A favorite food that is not a dessert.
Steak.
Favorite dessert.
Vanilla ice cream.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Camp.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Check my phone when I'm standing in line, and I don't need to. I need to just let myself be bored.
I like it. If I could snap my fingers, Bill, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
Alaska in the summer.
Last question, kind of bringing it all together here. The censorship effect, what Minds has done. Hey, our U.S. government has involvement with the largest big tech social companies. Some, maybe not some oversight or whatnot, but there's definitely some ins in there. Do you foresee a day where the decentralized social network of Minds gets a couple of the eyes and ears of those, checking out our government? I'm just getting your 2 cents on that.
You mean if they came to us? I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny if that's if that's ever happened before, but
Nicely done.
I mean, it's been crazy. Like, I don't know if you've been following the Alex Berenson case with Twitter.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is completely wild. Like, so this guy got banned from Twitter for, posting about COVID. He then sued Twitter. He got the judge to give him discovery on Twitter. In the discovery, we have Slack screenshots of the White House, of basically Twitter people saying the White House is telling us to get rid of this guy. So like, and we're seeing this in multiple places, but so we've got the whole Zuckerberg thing with the FBI, but the FBI and the White House are kind of obviously different. But seeing that we actually are getting this overt pressure from the White House as like a moderation arm of these tech companies it's just completely insane. It's going way too far. And again, like I'm not trying to assume malicious intent. I think that people think that they're doing the right thing a lot of the times with this, but we've entered a la land, and we need to rein it back in.
Bill Ottman, reining it back in. Everybody check it out. We'll put all the links in the show notes. The Censorship Effect, Minds, and Minds.com. Hey, thanks so much for coming on the program today.
Thanks so much for having me, Lou.
You got it. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out in the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.